Hello everyone, Kent.Bressler here. I want to welcome you to Kent's Kidney Stories. During our time together over these podcasts, I'd like to discuss kidney disease. I'd like to tell you about my journey as a transplant patient, but also talk about dialysis, kidney donation, and just about anything else that might be of interest. Kent's Kidney Stories, a podcast endorsed and sponsored by kidneysolutions.org. Hello, everyone. This is Kent.Bressler, and we're going to do some podcasting this bright day. I do want to make acknowledgement to the fact that this is September 11th, which is, I think, in my heart, a very, very sad day. It's 20 years ago when those planes went into the towers in New York and also into the Pentagon and into a field out in Pennsylvania. And I just want to take a little bit of time for you to reminisce about it, but also think about all the people that lost their lives. And in deference to them, find some time in your day today to give thanks for what we have in this country. All right, and I'm going to have a little prayer first. We'll start with that, and then I'm going to introduce I've got a great fellow that I met in my travels on the internet, and we're going to have a good time talking with him. Dear Lord, I come humbly before you, asking that you heal me in every area of my life. I give you my heart and faith that you can make me whole. Praise your name, Jesus. I believe that you are my healer and redeemer, and I love you. Amen. So I want you to welcome this morning and listen to Fez Anwan, who lives in Blackburn, England. And he is a transplant recipient. And we're going to learn about his story. And we're in general just going to have a nice little talk with him because I'm starting to accumulate or aggregate some friends in England and in Germany and all over. We want to, hopefully we can put all of these folks together at some time on a Zoom call, and we can talk kidneys and kidney transplant. Fez, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning to you, Kent.
I'm excited to talk with you. We've talked at length, and I see you on Clubhouse a lot. Clubhouse has kind of gotten to be, I think, for you, a very wonderful thing because it gives you some companionship. I think it's
most definitely.
Thing. Yeah.
Especially in the times we are living in, being immune compromised, it's a bit harder to get out there and talk to people. So I guess I use Clubhouse to virtually get out there and talk to people. So yeah, it has been very helpful, and the people I've met, including yourself, have been great. It's helped me a lot.
One of the things that amazes me about that format, the Clubhouse format, you can get yourself, if you go through there and look, you can get yourself in a room that's just perfect for you, that you're comfortable in and everything. So I think it's good for you. I've noticed just now, since I've talked to you, it's been a couple of weeks, I see that you have a little joy in your face and your voice, and that's good.
Yeah. So some of the clubs, hence why it's called Clubhouse, I guess. Some of the clubs that I tend to regularly visit, I've made connections with people, so it feels more kind of relaxed as when I first joined it, and then you know one. But over time, you build them relationships and you have that rapport with people. And it's been very beneficial for me, I guess, mentally as well, just having people who not only can relate to me from a medical sense, but also just generally sense of humor or where we live or whatever the topic may be. So I initially started going to the Kidney Journeys Club, which is run by a gentleman called Kyle Chang. And very warm person. He's based in America, I believe Chicago. And then from there, I've kind of developed other relationships with other people in similar medical rooms, but more broad medical rooms. So I'm also learning as well as contributing about other conditions and other illnesses and things. And then some of the rooms are just fun rooms that I'll go to, whether it's comedians or whatever, people doing like voiceover work and people kind of doing stage performances, but on Clubhouse, so not on a proper stage. But yeah, it's really fun. I find it quite fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I think it's good for you. I was concerned about you. Remember, we talked about depression, and you just couldn't get out, and you just didn't seem like you could connect. But now I'm glad. I'm glad you're on that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I probably find a little bit difficult is the time difference. So obviously it's open around the world. So when you have certain rooms that are based in places that are many hours different to your time zone, that can be a bit tricky. But yeah, apart from that, there's always someone knocking about that you might know once you've been on the app for a while that you can just chat to, and you don't necessarily have to talk in a club environment. So there are other people there. You can like have private rooms between people as well. So there is that facility. And you can also message people. So if there's something for example, if I wanted to say something to you, but I didn't feel comfortable saying it in a stage environment where everyone could hear, I could just message you personally, for example.
Yes.
So I think, again, that's a good addition to it. On the app, they call it a back channel, but it's basically messaging someone privately. So yeah, I've quite enjoyed it. I've grown to like it. And I'll hopefully continue using it even when I am more safe to go out, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because the relationships I've made have been good. So.
Okay, so tell me, you've had a couple kidney transplants, I think, have you not?
Yeah, I'm a bit greedy like that. So
you've had your share.
Yeah, so to date, I've had 3 kidney transplants. So I was born with renal failure, kidney failure, and that was due to reflux. So my urine wasn't emptying, and it kept going back to my kidneys, my original kidneys, and they were inevitably damaged by that. And yeah, that's how I pretty much got kidney failure. So yeah, I guess at the start it was a lot harder for my parents because obviously they had a child who was ill. And who had to spend a lot of time in hospital. And they also had my siblings who were at home. So they had to travel quite a lot from the hospital and back home, and childcare at home, and then childcare in the hospital and so forth. So in the beginning days, I would imagine it was very difficult for them. But yeah, so my first transplant was when I was 3 years old. So before that point, I was nasogastrically fed. I couldn't really empty my bladder very well. So a few procedures were done for that. I did have a very short stint on peritoneal dialysis for a little while when I was young. Fortunately, it wasn't very long. And on April the 1st, when I was 3, is when we got the call for my first transplant. April the 1st being April Fool's Day. My dad, you see, you know what's coming. But basically, my dad picked up the phone initially and he thought it was a prank call.
Yeah.
So he hung up on the hospital. And
Did they call back?
Yeah. Thankfully, they rang back. Unfortunately, he picked up again. And in more sterner words, he kind of told them where to go and hung up again, kind of
no.
Yeah. And fortunately, they rang a third time. And fortunately, my mother picked up this time and she was like, it's not a prank call. It's a serious call. And he can potentially get a transplant. So we need to take him to the hospital.
Was this in England?
Yeah. So all my transplants have been.
Oh, okay. England. All right. Okay. So were you born in England?
Yes, I was born in England.
All right.
So my parents are originally from Pakistan.
Yes.
But yeah, I was born and raised here in England.
Okay. So after the first transplant, how long did it last? You were 3.
So approximately 10 years. So I was around 13 or so, 13, maybe 14. So about 10, 11 years approximately. And apart from the side effects of medication and being quite young and being a lot hairier than kids my age, which led to a bit of bullying and name calling and things like that. And also having to catheterize because I wasn't emptying my bladder properly.
Oh my.
And having to use catheters. Those, I guess, were the first 2 main kind of memories that come to my mind where I noticed I was different to other children.
Sure.
And it was actually me that was different and not the other children that were different. When you have more facial hair than you should at the age of like 7 or 8 or whatever it was at that point, you quickly start to realize that, it's me that's different. And when you start to realize that not all children use catheters to urinate, you start to quickly pick up, okay, this is the situation, this is my life. Yes, I'm the different one. I can accept that as much as you can at that age, I guess. But I don't think the kind of bullying and name calling helped. But I understand that when children find someone or something that is different, it kind of puts that person or that thing under a microscope because it's different and they don't fully understand it, or they're not fully aware of why it's different. Now I still remember it, but I'm kind of over it in the sense of I understand why it happened.
Yeah.
That's what kind of children generally do when they find difference in something. And they don't know properly how to approach it. They'll kind of single it out in a slightly more mean way. I guess I was fortunate in those days. There was no like Facebook and Twitter.
Right, there was no social media. Yeah.
So it was more kind of done to my face at the time. And because it was done to my face and at the time, I think that helped me become a bit more quick-witted about things to make it into a joke. And then I tended to use humor as a defense mechanism also when people try to single me out. I think it was kind of character building in retrospect, looking back at it now. At the time, it wasn't so fun, admittedly.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah.
But in retrospect, I can see the benefits of it. In the fact that it's made me more resilient and kind of made me approach things in a way where if you find a difference in people, whether that be regarding organ donation or general illnesses, etc., there's a way to approach and ask people about it, and you don't have to be mean about it. So that was when I was younger.
Yeah, but those young years are cruel. It just depends, and they can be cliquey, the term cliquey, groupie, and if you look back now, are any of those folks or got kids or guys, are they still around? Are you still friends with them now? Do you have any contact with them?
Not really, to be totally honest. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so one or two I'll still see in the neighborhood because
Yeah.
we all live like kind of in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we'll say hello and we'll exchange pleasantries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they're close bonds that have stuck. But yeah, we're civil with each other now. We're adults and we kind of know a bit more
You've
about
learned
things and about life. Yeah.
experiences are better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're growing
I
up.
think growing up into adulthood and learning that people can be different and are different, you learn as an adult how to approach those situations. But I guess obviously when you're young, you're a bit more silly and you don't know quite how to handle it.
You're
But
learning.
yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're learning, right? I mean, you don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. But yeah, so I see some of them now and again, like around the area as mentioned. But yeah, it's mainly pleasantries. How are you doing? How's your health? As opposed to singling out my health, it's more
how you doing?
It's more like how you doing, how are things?
Yeah.
And things like that, really.
Well, that's good because it can extend, that can be the biggest problem in it. Let's progress to number 2. What happened then? What happened to your first kidney that created number 2?
So I think number 1 just generally came to the end of its life, so to speak. It just started to deteriorate slowly. And I was in my 3rd year of high school, so I'm assuming the high school system is a bit different in America. So we have 5 years here. And very long time ago, it was year 1, year 2, year 3, 4, 5. That made sense.
Yep.
And then they changed it to like year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, and then year 11. So around my 3rd year or year 9, depending on what system you know from the UK, is when it started to kind of deteriorate. I was put onto PD because I only had a short stint when I was younger, maybe about 6 months, if that. I was still able to do PD when I was like 14-ish. So I started PD. Initially, I did exchanges, but it became very impractical, especially having to take it to school and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Which again was another thing people kind of noticed and singled out and things like that. At that point, I wasn't catheterizing anymore, which was good. It was a bit more normal to have facial hair because everyone was going through puberty.
Yeah, you fit in.
Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. But then I was lumbered with these bags of fluid and things like that. And
oh my gosh.
I'm like, yeah, this is not going to work in the long term. So me and my family, me and my parents, we had a discussion with our renal team. And I was obviously still at pediatrics at this point, and the pediatric team that I had at the time were amazing. They were really good, and they had been from a very young age. And I have very fond memories of being a pediatric patient.
Everybody loves kids.
Yeah, basically.
And then they really love sick kids. They love to work with that have some disabilities, and then you can help them. Yeah, so yeah, you're in good hands, I'll bet you.
Yeah. So yeah, my team and the people that were there really got to know me quite well because I was admitted quite a lot on and off for different reasons. So like, for example, at the age of around 8 or 9, I had my original kidneys removed. So they were taken out. So I was in hospital for that. I had a mitral valve built when I needed to catheterize. So they got to know me through that. When I got UTIs or infections and things like that, I was again admitted and tested and made sure it was a UTI and not anything else serious and things. So yeah, I became quite a regular.
Needless to say, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the rapport with the pediatric team and the pediatric hospital generally was really good. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's good.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, around the age of approximately 14, roughly, so year nine, maybe towards the tail end of year nine, I was doing exchanges, but then it was like, this is not going to work practically. I was also obviously getting a lot of
A
the
lot of infections.
things.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
infections, but the symptoms you get kind of with kidney, when your kidneys start to fail, the tiredness, the loss of appetite, the pain in your joints, that kind of thing. They were really kind of starting to get worse. So we went to my renal team and we were like, is there any other way he can dialyze apart from doing exchanges? And they told us about APD, so automated peritoneal dialysis.
Right.
And we trained up on the machine. And this was quite a while ago now, so the machines were a lot bigger then. But we had this big machine in our house. And I used to do PD 6 nights a week. So yeah, 6 nights for about 11 hours, maybe 12 hours approximately. So the plan was I would go on at like 7 in the afternoon, and then that way I would be up for 7 in the morning, ready to go to school in the morning.
And ready, yeah.
Yeah, that was the plan. At the time, what the staff and my parents didn't know was I was quite inquisitive about the machine and how it worked. And I figured out ways of adjusting things to make sure I miss certain lessons first thing in the morning.
Ornery little dude.
Yeah. It's not something I would recommend to do regularly. But yeah, I was a teenager and this was my life. So I was going to try and master it and use it to the best of my advantage.
Yep.
So yeah, the main lesson, to be fair, that I would try and miss was PE. I didn't like being out in the cold, and generally I wasn't very big with PE, especially considering the pains I would have and the tiredness and things. That I was like, it logically doesn't make much sense because I'm not going to be able to do a full lesson anyway. It's the middle of like October, November. I don't really want to be playing football in the field. So what's the point?
That's right. So you were able to manipulate your machine so you didn't have to.
Yeah, basically. I would just put it on pause for a bit.
Yeah, put it on pause, yeah.
Yeah, and give it maybe 20, 30 minutes and then just unpause it and let it carry on. That's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did APD for about 17, 18, well, PD overall about 18 months approximately, maybe towards more 2 years, but yeah, 18 months to 2 years. During that time, my father did the workup to be a live donor to myself. So whilst I was doing my PD and going to school as much as I could and things like that, he was doing his workup. So, you know, he would go through all the testing systems that he needed to go to physically and mentally to make sure he was able and fully understood what donating a kidney would mean to him.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then on May the 4th, year 2000, so Star Wars Day, I got my dad's kidney. And that was great. That was like, I got a kidney, which was awesome. There were quite a few complications in like the first year to 18 months, which then kind of also affected my GCSE years, which are like the examinations you take at the end of high school here.
Oh, I imagine that was difficult. You missed a lot of school. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I missed quite a lot. So I had the transplant. During surgery, unfortunately, my lung collapsed. So that meant I had to spend a few days in ICU. But I was asleep all the way through it. And when I did wake up, they kind of explained to me, you've actually been asleep for like 3-4 days.
Yeah.
And this is what happened during surgery. And then things were explained to me because obviously I was out of it. But yeah, so I obviously didn't realize my lung had collapsed or anything like that. I woke up, my mum was at my bedside. She would kind of routinely travel between my dad and myself because we were at separate hospitals. So it must have took a toll on her as well. But yeah, my dad was good. He was fine. He woke up as normal. He kind of had a few days of pain because he had surgery. But he was, I think, out of hospital after about 5 days, maybe 6 days.
How old was he at the time? How old was your dad at the time? Do you remember?
Oh,
approximately.
Wow.
Approximately. In his 50s? 40s?
Yeah, maybe his 40s.
40s. Yeah, that's good. Close enough. It's just kind of.
I reckon. Yeah, it was about 20 years ago. So I reckon his 40s because he's in his 60s now. So yeah.
Oh, he's getting up there then. No, I'm just kidding.
It's all right. He's not here. He can't hear me. But yeah, it happens. We all grow old.
That's right. I'm getting there.
But yeah, so the first year was quite very up and down. So I ended up getting CMV in the first year. Well, the first 18 months year. I ended up getting CMV. I ended up getting meningitis. I ended up getting encephalitis. I had a few bouts of rejection also, which obviously it was recovered, thankfully. So yeah, the first kind of year and a half, it was kind of nuts.
I would say so. I would say it was kind of nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're kind of like a teenager and you just want to be a normal teenager, not only I think did it affect me mentally, but also the fact that it affected my education as well.
I think so, yeah.
And just all the aspects of it, and not seeing my family regularly, and kind of seeing my brothers and my mom and my dad, apart from when they came visiting, and my extended family as well. At the time, obviously, we didn't have things like Zoom and things like that. I didn't own a mobile phone at that point. So yeah, it was quite isolating in that sense. But yeah, I mean, again, thinking back on it now, I guess it's one of those things you kind of have to kind of go through, and it makes you stronger.
What other choice did you have?
Yeah, there's also that as well. To be fair, there's also that.
Yeah.
Like, what other choice did I have?
Yeah.
But yeah, that first kind of year and a half was a bit tricky, but then things settled down, things were good. I went to college regularly as normal. Did quite well at college and wanted to carry on pursuing education in university. I did take a gap year before I went to university just to try and save up a bit of money, really. I did a few kind of retail jobs and things like that just to save up a bit of money. But then, yeah, I applied for university, went to university. The first year was great, met new people, met new friends, kind of living alone in a new city, kind of exploring a new city, and just generally doing things an adult would do. So like having to pay bills, do the shopping yourself, and kind of basically growing up.
Yep. Growing up.
Kind of getting into adulthood whilst also doing my education. So first year went really well. Things were good. Came home for the summer. Things were good. Then I went back for my second year, and I think it was after the Christmas holidays. So around the Easter term, I started feeling well. At first, I just thought it was a bug or something, and just kept drinking plenty of fluids, taking my tablets, doing that kind of thing, just trying to keep as well as possible. but I was slowly kind of getting worse. Initially, my food wouldn't stay down. It would either come out through my mouth or through the other passage in a way that it shouldn't.
Yep.
Then I started to realize kind of like I was in a lot more pain. I was a lot more tired. I was starting to miss lectures. I was starting to miss deadlines to hand in coursework and things like that. But I was quite, I guess, proud, but also a bit stubborn in the fact that I didn't want to worry people at home that I was feeling this way. But it got to a point where the people I was living with got quite concerned for me, and they actually rang my parents.
Yep.
So it wasn't actually me that rang them. My parents came, they knocked on the door. They pretty much looked at me and said, "You look so yellow. You look like a Simpsons character."
Yes. So you had some liver failure?
No, I just looked really bad, apparently.
Okay.
All
right.
And I obviously lost the color in my face, so it kind of made me look kind of like paler and yellower.
Yeah. Okay.
And generally, we kind of try to use humor in the family generally to kind of lighten the really harsh realities of what I faced and what other members have faced in life. So yeah, they did the little Simpsons joke, and I was like, okay, it must be serious if my parents are doing jokes as well to make me feel calm. It's probably serious. They then pretty much that same day took me to the hospital I was under. They did a blood test, found out my creatinine was like 960 something or 50 something.
Wow.
I was admitted the same day. I had emergency dialysis. So they put a shunt in my leg. They had me on IV drugs as well. During that week, I probably had maybe 3 or 4 sessions of dialysis to try and clear out the toxins and see if they could salvage the kidney. After that kind of 2-week period, maybe 3-week period where I was in, basically they sat us all down as my parents and me, and they basically said, we've salvaged a little bit of function, and I think my GFR maybe at that time was about 25-ish.
Approximately. Okay.
So they're like, we've been able to salvage some function. The function that has been lost, we won't be able to like get
Can't
that
come back. No.
And also because of, I guess, the immediate trauma of getting from like a creatinine of 900 down to like, I think it ended up being around 400. This kidney will eventually over time kind of see its last legs.
Yep. It won't run. It won't run forever.
Yeah. So they, being from an ethnic minority as well, and having to consider the fact that it would be my 3rd transplant, they preemptively put me back on the transplant list in 2013. And I was told the wait would be approximately 9 years. So that was the approximation they gave, considering all the circumstances with my previous transplants and the fact that being from an ethnic minority, people don't tend to donate as much from ethnic minorities, at least here in the UK, for a multitude of reasons, but I guess that comes down to education. So yeah, I kind of came back home. I had to withdraw from university because I wasn't well enough to go back. And I kind of got in a bit of a funk, really. I got quite down. I got quite depressed.
I'm sure.
I was questioning my life in the sense of, what am I going to do now? I'm not qualified in anything. Every time I think I'm doing all right, my kidneys fail again. And it was just like, oh, what's next? Like, I'm 20 odd years old. I've had 2 almost failed kidney transplants. And yeah, it was very disheartening. So I had a bit of a dark period at that time. I contemplated things that I'm glad I didn't do now. But
who helped you through that? Who helped you through that?
Family, friends. So yeah, mainly other renal friends, but also family were a great support. And my mom being probably my biggest support mechanism, she was like, you can't just, as much as it does suck that this has happened to you, this was not her saying this verbatim, but in a nutshell.
Sure.
She was like, as much as your life kind of is sucky at the moment, you do need to try and still venture out and go into the world and find opportunities to do things, even if it's little things like going for a walk in the park or going to see a relative who lives 5-10 minutes away and have a cup of tea with them and then come home. Just little things. So I started doing little things here and there, kind of trying to get out the house, get out the bedroom. But I was finding that as much as, a walk in the park is really great and seeing relatives was really fun, I was still at that point of, but what am I going to do with my life? I can't just go for works in the park all the time. I can't just go see family all the time. So I did stop.
Yeah, you'd really like to get up and go to work, right?
Yeah, or do something productive at least.
Yeah.
So it was my mom who suggested that I start volunteering. So I did. I started volunteering at a local youth center. And through volunteering at the local youth center, I gained my qualifications to be a qualified youth worker. So that kind of gave me that peace of mind, and also that kind of thought that, okay, worst comes to worst, if everything goes wrong in my life, I can still do this, and I'm still qualified in this.
Gave you a sense of peace then, right?
Yeah, and a sense of purpose as well, I think.
And purpose, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
At this time, my kidney did start to deteriorate even more, and a fistula was made in preparation to start hemodialysis. I had been volunteering maybe 3, 4, possibly 5 years at this youth center, and it was becoming, and I had gained the qualification, so that was great. But it was becoming a bit stagnant for me personally. That's when I got approached by my Kidney Patient Association, so KPA, for my local area, and I started volunteering for them as a committee member for them. And because it was renal, and because I was probably one of the youngest committee members, it kind of helped me to engage with patients and kind of share my experiences with them. Whether that was at workshops, whether that was at public speaking events, pre-dialysis days for patients who were about to start dialysis. So that was really helpful. And through that came the opportunity to join the NHSBT, so NHS Blood and Transplant, as an organ donation ambassador. So that opened that door. So I went and started volunteering with them. All this was happening at the same time of me having to start dialysis, hemodialysis this time round. So I was also, initially I started to go in-center and do the kind of traditional 3 times a week, 4 hours kind of job. And that didn't really agree with me because it was taking pretty much my day, because I didn't drive at the time, and my brothers and mother kind of had to go to work, so they had to go to work and drive and stuff. So I was waiting on hospital transport. Now, as much as hospital transport is great because it's free, the waiting times can be like a piece of string. Sometimes you're waiting like 10 minutes, which is great. Sometimes you're waiting like an hour and a half, which is not so great.
Right.
So you're really at their beck and call, really. So even though I might have been doing a 4-hour session, my day might have ended up being like 6 hours or whatever. Sometimes with the transport included. And it was just taking up too much of the day. And I was just like, I'm too tired after dialysis to go volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
So I decided, because I was a bit older now and I could make that decision. I decided to do home hemo. So I started the process of doing home hemo, went to the training center, obviously discussed with my renal team about home hemo and whether it'd be viable for myself and whether it'd be possible. So yeah, they were like, yeah, it's possible. You have space in your house. We have access to your water mains, etc. And it is possible, but you will have to learn how to like do everything by yourself. Obviously, your family will support you, but in essence, you will be doing it by yourself. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, not a problem. So I learned how to use the machine, how to program the machine, how to needle myself, how to take out the needle safely, keeping an eye on my stock and making sure my stock was on point.
Right.
Cleaning the machine, dismantling the machine, basically so all the things that my parents kind of did for me when I was on APD, when I was younger, I was pretty much doing that now when I was on home hemo. And I realized now, like, although yes, the dialysis were different, especially at the beginning, it can be a lot. So yeah, total respect for my mom and dad for doing that when I was younger. But yeah, initially I found it a little bit overwhelming. But I did get into a routine. I did get my schedules of deliveries, etc. And yeah, things started working and things were going well. But again, doing it at home, as much as it was the comfort of when I wanted to do my 4 hours or 5 hours, if I wanted to do 5 hours, it was still taking a large chunk of the day and I was still getting quite tired with it. At the time as well, I was also anemic and
you had to have some blood.
Yeah. And so I had appointments to go for IV iron, and then I had my general renal appointments. Then comorbidity issues happened, and I had to go for appointments for that. And it was just a lot. And I was like, there must be a simpler way to get more independence and more freedom whilst living on dialysis. So I started talking to more renal patients that I know here in the United Kingdom, and maybe like two main ones that are in my mind that I would talk to quite a lot were actually doing nocturnal dialysis. So they told me about how it worked for them, how they found it, the pros, the cons, etc. And so this thought kind of ruminated in my mind, and I looked it up on the internet and things like that. And I thought it was a good idea, and it was something that I wanted to at least try to see if it would make my life easier and give me that freedom and independence to be more flexible with my dialysis. And that way I can make dialysis work for me and my life, as opposed to working my life around dialysis.
Exactly.
So I approached my team and I was like, can I do nocturnal dialysis? And they were like, yeah, sure, it's not a problem. We will have to alter a few things, like the blood thinning, so your blood doesn't clot through the machine overnight and things like that. And I was like, cool, no problem, let's do it. Like I can use a syringe now, that's not a problem. So yeah, around the time we were meant to start, my fistula started playing up. So then we had to kind of put nocturnal on the back burner for a little bit. It was unfortunate that they couldn't salvage my fistula, and I ended up with a neckline. Initially, they didn't want me to keep my neckline for infection control reasons.
Exactly.
But because I was home and because there wasn't a lot of people coming in and out of my bedroom whilst I was dialyzing, or at the points I was setting up or disconnecting or connecting, it was less of a fear for me in that sense. And also I was very sensible, to be fair, in taking care of my line, making sure it was protected when showering and things like that.
Well, you knew the importance of it. I mean, that was your lifeline, right?
Yeah, exactly. So overall, the total use of my fistula, I mean, I had it for probably 2, maybe 3 years, but the actual use of it was probably about 6 months, maybe 8 months at a push. And they wanted to make another fistula, and I could see that the line was working. And I basically had a frank discussion with my doctor, and I was like, if this line is working and I'm able to take care of it, and I'm being safe and I'm taking all the precautions, and the fact that I'm dialyzing at home and not in a center, so there's a lot less people, I'm going to be keeping my line. And at first he was a bit bemused and he was like, what? And I was like, I'm going to keep my line. Now, I totally understand that some people don't like lines, and I totally respect that decision. Some people just don't like having lines in, and that's fine. But for me, it was a lot easier.
Practical.
It was practical. It was easier. It meant that I wasn't going to have another surgery on my other arm. But they were like, so initially they were like, okay, a bit hesitantly. And then they were like, but can we still do the tests and things to see if we can make a fistula on my other arm? I was like, you can do all the tests you want. You can do your ultrasounds and you can take the measurements of my arteries and veins, etc., in my other arm. But unless something happens with this line, I won't be having another fistula. I made that quite clear.
Yeah.
But I reckon due to protocols and things, they probably have to go through this process, possibly.
Well, it's a preparation. It's a preparation, Fez. You got to be prepared to do it. You can't just do all those things at the time of the surgery. So it's important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I let them do it. They took their scans and they did what they needed to do, and their x-rays and whatever, and their ultrasounds, and, and got in touch with a vascular surgeon and gave him my details about my arm and all that kind of jazz. They did all that. And then it came to the day of having the appointment with the surgeon. And he was like, so the plan is we're going to make a fistula on your right-hand side, and this is what we'll do, and this is where it'll be, and blah, blah, blah. And I was there nodding along, okay, knowing full well that my line is working fine. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he handed me the consent form, and I was like, I'm not signing it. And he looked at me really blank. He was like, what do you mean you're not signing it? I was like, I'm not signing it. I'm not having another fistula. He was like, but you need one. I was like, why do I need one? He was like, so you can dialyze. I was like, I can dialyze with my line. And he was really confused. He was like, so why did you go through everything, like all the scans and things? I was like, because you wanted me to. I was like a hospital. You wanted me to do it. But I made it quite clear, unless there's an issue with my line, I wasn't going to have another fistula. So he was like, so you're not going to sign this? And I was like, nope, I'm not going to sign this. He was like, so we're not doing the surgery. I was like, nope, we're not doing the surgery. And he was like, right, okay, then I guess there's nothing more to discuss.
We'll see you later.
Yeah, I was like, okay, see you later, bye. And then, so then once they realized I wasn't going to have another fistula and I was happy with the line and I was sensible with my line, we started the process of going through nocturnal, and blood thinning agents were basically the only thing that really needed adjusting. My pump speed was a lot slower because I was doing a lot extra hours during the night. And generally, it was the best decision I made, for me at least anyway. It gave me that flexibility. It gave me better clearances in my blood, which meant less restrictions. It gave me a bit more energy as well because the blood wasn't being sucked out so vigorously on a higher pump speed.
Right.
It didn't drain me out and make me all kind of feel really lousy at the end of a session. And
it worked for you.
It literally, yeah, it worked for me. It was kind of like the best probably decision I made. And I'm very grateful for the friends that did talk to me through it and kind of gave me advice and things like that.
That's what that mentoring does for you. Having somebody that's been through it and is walking the walk, right? So that's great. So that's great. So how long did you have the catheter then before you had your third transplant?
So I had my neckline in probably about 5, maybe 6 years, approaching 6.
Unbelievable.
And I think there was only 2 times where there was an issue. So one time there was a kink internally, so they had to replace it.
Yeah.
Fine. And then one time it kind of had fibroids in it, so it was making dialyzing a bit of an issue. So they just kind of give me a slightly more powerful kind of line lock to put in, and that cleared that away. So yeah, I think it got replaced maybe once, and using a different medication to kind of keep the lines locked, maybe once or twice.
Do you realize how unique that is to have that catheter for 5 years? I can't believe I'm serious. That's crazy. Because I don't think anybody here in the States for sure. I don't know for sure, but they sure would have argued with you. You'd almost have to have that replaced and use the fistula.
I mean, they did have them discussions, as mentioned.
All the way through, in the 5 years, they kept talking about it, right?
They kept mentioning it. Yeah, they kept mentioning it.
I would think so.
But I think maybe after the midway between the second and third year, they kind of knew I wasn't going to change.
Ain't going to happen, right? Yeah.
Also, I think when they saw my blood results quite regularly as well, how well I was dialyzing, how good my clearances were and things like that, they kind of noticed, wow, this is really working for him. So why would we mess up something that is working for him so well?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think they came to kind of understand that we're not going to try and fix something that isn't broken.
Yep.
He's getting his dialysis. He's getting more than adequate hours. He's getting better clearances.
And he's functional.
Yeah, he's functional. Yeah. He's got more freedom. He can volunteer. And I got to do talks regarding my own personal story and regarding organ donation. I did some other kind of courses to become a peer mentor with NHS England and Improvement. So yeah, things were good. I was helping my local unit as a member of the Kidney Patient Association. So I helped my region as well in sharing my story and kind of going to these pre-dialysis days, and people that were worried about fistulas or worried about lines or worried about home dialysis, I could literally talk them through it because I've been through the gambit.
I would think so. You were well experienced.
Yeah, I was really well experienced.
From childhood, 3 years on?
So,
really?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've had it since childhood. So there's always been a hurdle of sorts to kind of overcome, whether that be PD, drug kind of side effects, the bullying aspect, the missing education, the mental aspect of withdrawing from university and getting into like a kind of a depression, and then going on to hemo, getting over the fact that I had to needle myself, getting comfortable with that, kind of setting up this whole new regime in my household, just all of it really, then doing nocturnal, having a line instead.
Amazing story. Amazing story. So how did you get to that third transplant? How old were you when you had it?
It was last year.
Last year. So you're just like a year out from your, and
So
where did it come from? Where did the kidney originate?
It was from a deceased donor. So we don't know where from.
Yep.
But from the limited information they did give me, it was from a female, and she was approximately about 15 years older than I am, approximately.
Yeah.
And that's all the information I really know. So it was last July, so July 2020. I received my third transplant, and that was my pandemic transplant. So I've had my April Fool's transplant, I've had my Star Wars Day transplant, and now I've had my pandemic transplant.
Exactly. And you'll never forget them.
Yeah, exactly. They all have something that's unique to them in one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can tell you just from getting to know you as little as I have, your attitude's great. You know, that's what it takes. And I just think what your main emphasis has always been is deal with it when it comes. Don't anticipate it, right? Whatever's happening.
I guess that's life in a nutshell. I mean, yes, it's a bit more extreme when you have a chronic illness.
Yeah.
And you will have down days, and you will have down periods, and you will go to dark places sometimes. But I think if you have the right support, it helps a lot. And especially if your medical professionals are supportive as well. So like the home dialysis team, the whole training and getting home and changing from a fistula to a line and changing from days to nocturnal and all that kind of stuff. They were really supportive. They were really great with me. So yeah, I have nothing but great words for those people. Like, they literally changed my life, and they helped me to kind of be more independent and be more of a functioning human being, where I could help other people, but also do things that I enjoyed, that, you know, so I could spend time with friends, that I could spend time with family. And for me, my local renal team are amazing. The dialysis side, the anemia side of it, and even now the transplant side of it, I mean, they are awesome. And I feel very blessed and very lucky with the team I've had and all the teams I've had over these years locally. I couldn't have wished for a better team. They're really respectful. They respect me as my person and my views. And in return, I respect them with their professional information and things that they tell me as well. And I think it helps when patients are listened to and not just treated as like, you are patient such and such, like, but an individualized patient. I think that's great. And you can have that rapport with your medical team. I know things are a little bit different in America when it comes to kind of insurance and money and things like that. But I think the humanistic side of it should be universal. Like, you should treat your patients like you would treat a loved one, for example. Like, it's still someone going through an issue, a task or a pain or whatever it might be, or symptoms, etc. And for me, my team have been brilliant. When I've needed mental health support, they've provided mental health support. When I've needed advice in the middle of the night because my machine was playing up, they would advise me. If I, for whatever reason, run out of something, but my delivery date wasn't for another week, they would give me some stuff to keep me over till my next delivery. So yeah, they were brilliant. They were only a phone call away. They give me all kind of, whether that, when I started doing nocturnal, they give me like the on-call number because they knew I was dialyzing at night. So if anything happened at night, who to ring during the day when I was doing my day sessions. the pharmacy department, the consultant, the nurses, all of them, everyone. I've been very blessed in that sense. I've been very, very blessed because I have heard some not so great stories.
Sure, absolutely.
So I'm very grateful to them, and I'm also very, very grateful to my donor, who's given me this third opportunity now, and I'm hoping this will be the last one.
You know what? In all honesty, here, you've given a lot of praise and a lot of thanks to everybody else, but you really ought to give yourself a little credit. I think that your perseverance, the ability for you to want to learn and understand your consequences, and then just dealing with it calmly, I think that says a lot about you and your character, Fez. Tremendous character. And I want you to know that this has been a delightful chat. And I want to have you back. I'm going to have you back with some other people in a group. I really would like to see that happen, especially if we get this group going, in Europe. And there's just so many good people in here. And I want you to give yourself some credit, okay? You start thinking about how you've weathered all of this because you've wanted to weather it. You told me that there was times when you didn't know if you were going to go on. Well, guess what? You have, and you're an inspiration. So I want you to stay in that frame. And you got my number anytime you want to call.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We're gonna kind of close it down here today, and we're gonna have Fez back again with the group, and in general, folks. You got to have the right attitude. You make the right attitude. And I guess probably the thing that has helped me the most, and I hope would help you and Fez is doing, is like deal with it as it comes. Don't anticipate it. Don't suggest that you know what's coming, but as things come, you can deal with them much easier than if you anticipate or think something's coming. But in the interim, I want you to also remember that you're your best advocate. You're the one who makes the decisions. You're the boss. And Fez showed you how that all works. And if you rely on others to make your decisions for you, that's not going to be very good for you. So make sure that you get the information you need, get your questions answered, but most of all, make sure that you make the decision in concert with your physician. And in the interim, just make sure that your heart's where it belongs, and this all will work out. God has every intention of making sure that it works out for you. His plan is that you progress and that you do well. And so until the next time, keep breathing.